You know how they say you can never really go home again? They're wrong. You can. It's just that home might not be waiting for you. Sometimes it's waiting for you. My name is Jin. I'm a data analyst. That's a sterile way of saying I get paid to find the signal in the noise, to look at a million scattered pieces of information and see the pattern hiding in plain sight. It's a good job for someone like me. I don't do well with blind faith. I need spreadsheets, standard deviations, and verifiable facts. Logic is my religion, and my sanctuary is a clean dataset. It's the life I built for myself, brick by logical brick, hundreds of kilometers away from my hometown. Away from Evergreen Hills. Even the name feels like a joke now. It's one of those picture-perfect small towns that city folk dream about. Manicured lawns, a town square with a gazebo, and a sense of community so thick you could choke on it. I was never a good fit. I was the kid asking too many questions, the teenager who couldn't stand the smothering pleasantries, the one who saw the pressure behind every perfect smile. So I ran. I traded the green pastures for concrete and the quiet hum of the town for the static of the city. And I never looked back. Until the phone calls started. Or rather, until they stopped. My mom, who used to call me every Sunday to grill me about my diet and my love life with the tenacity of a prosecuting attorney, went silent. When I finally got a hold of her after a week of unanswered calls, her voice was smooth, placid. All her sharp, wonderful edges had been sanded down. She said she was fine. Better than fine. She was content. That word, content, sent a chill down my spine that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. So I packed a bag, logged off from my life of predictable data, and drove home. My goal was simple, a clear-cut objective. Find out what was wrong with my mother. Find the cause, the variable that had changed her, and fix it. The thing you have to understand about my mom is that she was a force of nature, a whirlwind of opinions, love, and stubbornness. She was the one who taught me to question things, to look under the rug and see the dirt everyone else ignored. Now she just sits in her armchair by the window, smiling at nothing. She isn't sad. She isn't in pain. She doesn't have dementia, the doctors say. Her vitals are perfect. She's just gone. She's been hollowed out and filled with a serene, blissful emptiness. Yesterday, I asked her about the scar above her eyebrow, the one she got when I was 7 and crashed my bike into her while she was gardening. She just smiled, patted my hand, her touch light and distant. Don't you worry about a thing, honey. Everything is peaceful now. She didn't remember. She didn't remember the blood, the panic, the way she held me and told me it was okay, even though she was the one who needed stitches. That memory, a cornerstone of my childhood, a vivid data point in the story of us, was gone, replaced by a vacant calm. That's the real reason I'm terrified. I see it in the other older folks in town too. That same placid look, that beatific smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. It's a pattern, a virus of contentment spreading through the herd, and I seem to be the only one immune to it, the only one who sees it as a sickness. The data points are connecting, forming a shape in the dark I can't unsee. And I'm starting to realize that I have an impossible choice. I can present my findings, scream from the rooftops that something is terribly, fundamentally wrong here, and risk being the catalyst that brings this whole perfect, peaceful, empty world crashing down in blood and chaos. Or I can stay silent, and delete the report and let this thing run its course, consuming everyone I've ever known, starting with my own mother. My decision wasn't a choice. It was a foregone conclusion, a function of my own programming. Faced with an anomaly, an analyst investigates. I started where I always do, with the data. I spent 2 days in the dusty, musty-smelling basement of the town hall, poring over public records under their flickering fluorescent lights. I built spreadsheets, I ran regressions. I was looking for a variable, an environmental toxin, a localized outbreak, anything with a paper trail. What I found was far more unsettling. Evergreen Hills wasn't just a nice place to live, it was statistically perfect. For the last 30 years, since just after my great-grandfather's time, there hadn't been a single violent crime, not one. Unemployment was a flat, unwavering 0. The town's economy hummed along with impossible efficiency, weathering national recessions without so much as a ripple. But the most glaring anomaly, the number that made the hair on my arm stand up, was the migration data. People moved to Evergreen Hills, young families, retirees, but no one ever moved away. Not a single resident in 4 decades had sold their home to an outsider and left. They were born here, they lived here, and they died here, peacefully, in their beds. It was a statistical black hole, a place of absolute social gravity. That evening, the air was thick with the scent I was beginning to notice everywhere, a cloying, sweet smell like overripe flowers and damp earth. It clung to the back of my throat. I tried talking to my father about my findings, laying out the probability charts on the dinner table next to the pot roast. He just smiled, that same placid, distant smile my mother wore. "It's a special place, Jen," he said, his voice a low, soothing hum. "We take care of each other here. Don't trouble yourself with the numbers. Just be." It wasn't a dismissal. It was a gentle, loving command, and it was the most terrifying thing he could have said. His words, meant to soothe, were a catalyst. The command to just be was so alien to my nature that it felt like a threat. It sent me searching for a tangible cause, something I could touch and measure. If the problem wasn't in the town's recent records, I had to look further back. My father, like his father before him, was the unofficial town historian. His study was my next logical step. It was a place I hadn't entered in years, a room filled with leather-bound books, smelling of old paper and the ghosts of my family's past. And in a locked drawer of my great-grandfather's heavy oak desk, after forcing the cheap lock with a letter opener, I found it. A hand-drawn map of the deep woods bordering our property. A section of the forest, about 2 kilometers in, was circled in faded red ink. The label, in my great-grandfather's spidery script, was simple: The Landing. I went the next morning, just after dawn. The air grew thicker, sweeter as I walked, the pollen a visible golden haze in the morning light. The woods were unnaturally vibrant, the colors of the wildflowers almost fluorescent, the green of the moss of shade too deep. A low, almost subsonic hum seemed to vibrate up from the soil, a feeling more than a sound. Then I saw it. At first, it looked like a trick of the light, like morning dew clinging to the bark of the ancient oaks. But as I got closer, I realized they were threads. Millions of impossibly fine, silvery threads, webbing the trees together, stretching from canopy to forest floor. They shimmered, catching the light in a way that felt both beautiful and profoundly wrong. I was not in a forest anymore. I was inside a living thing.
a network. I reached out, my fingers hesitating before touching one of the larger strands. It wasn't sticky or wet. It was warm, with a faint, almost imperceptible vibration, like a plucked string on an instrument I couldn't hear. My analysis mind, which had been a comfort my whole life, was screaming. This was a biological impossibility, a complete system failure. I backed away slowly, my heart a frantic, illogical drum against my ribs. I turned and ran. The image of that shimmering, living web burned into my mind. For a full day, I tried to rationalize it. It was a rare fungus, I told myself, an undiscovered species of spider, a trick of my stressed-out mind. But denial is just a hypothesis waiting to be disproven. The data didn't fit. The memory of that warm, vibrating thread had burrowed into my brain, a terrifying new variable I couldn't ignore. It drove me back to my father's study that night, this time with a crowbar. The locked drawer was just the first layer of security. Behind a false panel at the back, tucked away under a pile of old tax records, I found what I was truly looking for: a set of leather-bound journals. My father's journals, and my grandfather's before him, and one at the very bottom that belonged to my great-grandfather. I sat there for hours, the world shrinking to the cramped, spidery handwriting on the yellowed pages. It was all there. The meteorite, a century ago, crashing where I had just stood. The spore, my great-grandfather, the first shepherd, discovering it, communicating with it, making a pact with the entity he called the Hive. It wasn't a monster, it was a farmer, and Evergreen Hills was its pasture. The journals spoke of a benevolent predation, a symbiosis where the Hive offered peace, health, and contentment in exchange for a slow, gentle harvest of consciousness. All my statistical anomalies were explained in those pages. There was no crime because there was no anger. No one left because no one wanted to. They were all blissfully, happily being consumed. And the last entry was in my father's hand, dated just last week. It described the final preparation for the Green Pasture Festival, an event I remembered from childhood as a joyous town picnic. The journal gave it another name, the Transfiguration, a final, complete absorption, a harvest. My blood ran cold. I looked up from the page, my mind reeling, and he was standing there, in the doorway. My father. He wasn't angry that I had broken into his desk, that I held his deepest secrets in my hand. His face was serene, his eyes glassy with that same vacant contentment as my mother. He looked at the open journal, then at me, and he smiled. It's beautiful, isn't it? To be part of something so peaceful, so complete. Your mother is almost ready. Soon, we all will be. You don't have to be afraid anymore, son. The shepherd is here to guide you home.
His words hung in the air, a gentle, loving trap. The shepherd is here to guide you home. For a moment, a single, terrifying moment, I saw the appeal. The blissful, ignorant peace. An end to the numbers, the questions, the crushing weight of a choice I never wanted. To just be, to let the current take me, to float alongside my mother and father in a sea of placid contentment. But it wasn't in my nature. My curse, my entire being is built on a single stubborn need to know the truth, to solve the equation. I ran, not out of the house, but deeper into the belly of the beast. I grabbed the data pad from my bag, shoved the journals inside,
and raced toward the center of town. I had one chance, one final presentation to make. The Green Pasture Festival was tonight. The town square was a sea of serene faces, all bathed in the warm glow of festival lights strung between the lampposts. The air was so thick with the sweet pollen I could taste it, a saccharine coating on my tongue. The low hum from the earth was louder here, a resonant frequency that vibrated in my bones, trying to lull me, to soothe me into submission. On the central gazebo stage, my father was speaking into a microphone. His voice was a calm, melodic lullaby, telling the town how proud he was of their community, of their peace. He was guiding his flock to the slaughter. I saw my mother in the front row, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes fixed on my father with a vacant, beatific adoration. That was the final data point I needed. I pushed through the docile crowd, the data pad clutched in my hand like a weapon. I confronted him at the side of the stage, my voice a harsh whisper. "You going to let them kill them?" He turned to me, and for a second I saw a flicker of the man who'd raised me, a flash of pain, of sorrow in his eyes. "It's not killing them, Jin. It's perfecting them, giving them an end without fear. I chose this for them. A quiet dream instead of the waking nightmare of the real world." That was it, the core of his hypothesis, and it was wrong. I looked from his tear-filled eyes to the docile, smiling faces of the crowd, to my mother, who was already gone. My impossible choice was here. Silence and let them be consumed in a lie, or revelation and bring their perfect world crashing down. My fear wasn't of the Hive. It was of this moment, of being the one to light the fuse. I chose the truth. I shoved past him, grabbed the microphone, and my voice, amplified and raw, shattered the placid evening. "It's a lie! None of this is real!" I connected the datapad to the projector that was showing a slideshow of happy town memories, and my charts and graphs filled the screen behind me. The crime rates, the migration data, scanned pages from the journals, the word harvest circled in red. I laid out the whole horrific truth, my voice cracking. "It's a parasite. It's eating you, your memories, your souls. My great-grandfather made a deal with a monster to turn this town into a farm. And the harvest is tonight." For a moment, there was only silence. Then a collective gasp. The placid smiles didn't just fade, they shattered. The Hive's chemical peace was broken by the sheer, brutal force of the truth. Confusion twisted into dawning horror, and horror curdled into rage. A woman screamed. A man pointed at my father. The shepherd! He knew! The mob turned. The first act of violence in Evergreen Hills in 30 years was a punch to my father's face. The pact was broken, and the Hive retaliated.
The ground didn't just hum, it roared. The sweet air became a thick, choking yellow fog of spores that erupted from the manicured flower beds. The silvery threads I'd seen in the woods burst from the soil, from the trunks of the ancient oaks lining the square, glowing with a furious alien light. The screams of the townsfolk changed from rage to pure, unadulterated agony as the truth they had just learned was replaced by a new, more horrifying reality. This wasn't a quiet dream. I had turned it into a waking nightmare. Their bodies were violently, rapidly remade. Fungal growths
like vibrant, cancerous flowers burst from their skin, arms elongated into twitching, branch-like limbs. Their mouths opened in silent screams as shimmering mycelium poured out, connecting them to their neighbors, weaving them into a grotesque, living tapestry of flesh and fungus. I watched, frozen, as the mob consumed my father, his own agonizing transformation melding with theirs, his role as shepherd ending in his absorption by the flock. I saw my mother rise, her face a mask of primal terror before a pale mushroom-like growth burst from her chest, and her blissful emptiness was replaced by an eternity of silent biological horror. I had saved no one. I had only changed the nature of their damnation. The screaming has stopped now. The fog has settled. The festival lights still cast a warm glow on the town square, but the scene is one of a sculptor's nightmare. The people are still here, but they are statues, monuments of flesh and fungus, their faces frozen in the agony I gave them. They are a single, silent, connected organism, the hive in its true form. The spores are in my lungs. I can feel the change starting in me, a warm tingling in my veins, a quiet pull to join the whole. My analysis was correct. I saw the pattern, I found the variable, and I presented my findings. That was my purpose, and it was my greatest, most terrible flaw. My core trauma wasn't a fear that I might be the catalyst for destruction. It was the horrifying, data-driven certainty that I would be. The choice was never mine to make. The outcome was a foregone conclusion, predetermined by the parameters of my own nature. I raised my hand to the sky, watching as a fine silvery thread began to sprout from my fingertip. I just wanted to see what would happen next.
Thank you so much for watching or listening. Like and subscribe for more nightmares. Your support keeps the darkness from consuming this channel, so we can face the next terrifying story together. Don't be left in the dark.